G'day folks, Pat Callinan here. Well, this episode takes us to K'gari or Fraser Island, and we're not going to go to exactly every place that every tour guide goes. We are going to show you the backside, and I would argue the more interesting side of Fraser Island. Yes, we'll show you the east coast, but we'll show you some absolute hidden gems on the west coast as well, and some of my favourite camps in all of the land. G'day folks, Pat Callinan here. The last time I was at this place, it had a different name, and that was only 12 months ago. Now they've changed the name. Now, I'm not usually a fan of name changes. I'm not a fan of change too much at all, but in this case, I think the new name really fits. It is called K'gari, which means paradise in the Bachelor language. And if there is a four-wheel drive paradise in Australia or the world, it has to be this place. No longer Fraser Island, but K'gari.
Get ready, because today we are all things K'gari.
I'm going to the world's biggest sand island.
The amazing. The difficult.
It's a skinny little chasm, and I like to do it in low range.
And the downright hard to believe.
There really is a postcard everywhere you look.
Those of you who know this place also know there's many ways to tackle this island. For this trip, I'll be heading up the east coast, taking in sites such as Eli Creek, Champagne Pools and Orchid Beach, all the way to Nagala Rocks, before heading back inland through Central Station and Lake Mackenzie to the very relaxing Kingfisher Resort. And then it's a drive up the west coast to the stunning Awinya Creek. All up 4 days of very fun four-wheel driving. Inskip Point, where you access the southern end of Fraser Island, might seem like an innocuous stretch of sand, but these few hundred metres have been responsible for the undoing of many a four-wheel driver. So much so that this place has its own Facebook page called I Got Bogged at Inskip Point. The carnage is part horrendous and part horrifying.
So how do you avoid looking like a wally when it's your first time on sand? Well, I guess the first thing is to try not to get bogged in the first place. It's really not that difficult. We need to lower our tyre pressures. I would start with between 16 and 18 PSI in your tyres. The next thing you need to do is to actually select the right gearing in your vehicle. You don't really need to worry about differential locks or anything like that, but you do need to select low range or sand mode in your particular vehicle. That's going to give you the drive that you need to get through this section. And it's really a good idea for this stuff, particularly in the summer months, to have that torque from your engine at the ready. And the best way to unlock that torque is definitely in low range. In terms of the driving technique that you need, with those low tyre pressures and low range, you really should just cruise away quite easily. But when you get into these ruts, don't fight the steering wheel. The vehicle will find its own way. A lot of beginners, you'll find they soar on the steering wheel and go left or right as the vehicle darts up and down out of the ruts, but you really don't need to do that. Just let the vehicle find its way into these tracks, and you shouldn't have too many problems at all. If you do actually get bogged, you definitely want to be prepared. So you're going to want a snatch strap at the ready and some rated shackles. Some recovery boards are also a fantastic option. I'm using exit tracks on my vehicle. 2 is great, 4 even better for the really boggy sections. And if things get really messy, it is very handy to have a winch hanging off the front of your four-wheel drive and know how to use it. The sense of anticipation as you're on the barge heading off to Fraser is always just absolutely spine tingling. I've been to the island over 15 times now, and it doesn't get old. Hey, I'm going to the world's biggest sand island.
I'm crossing from Inskip Point, but you can also get there from Hervey Bay. Just don't forget to buy a four-wheel drive permit before crossing and a return ticket for the barge ride.
This is just the best feeling, and it never gets old. Just cruising up a gorgeous beach in Queensland. looking at a beautiful ocean and just having that sense of freedom in your very own 4x4. This is gold. It's even better too if you can do it on a run-out tide like I'm doing today. This isn't perfect, but it's pretty damn good. You've got the firm sand and it just makes the drive that much better. When you're driving on the beaches of Fraser and the inland tracks for that matter, the normal Queensland road rules, they do apply. So you can't speed, you can't do circle work, any of that sort of stuff that you wouldn't do on the mainland, you're not allowed to do here. But one of the greatest tips I think that people tend to adopt here is the use of indicators up the beach. Obviously there's no lane markers here, and we all often like to actually drive on different parts of the beach. Some people are completely allergic to wet sand. They think their car's going to rust really quickly, so they just like to stay off it and drive higher up the beach. Others are quite happy to drive on the really firm stuff and the wet stuff and as close to the ocean as they can just about get, because you might get a bit of a smoother ride there. So the way that we indicate our intention to the oncoming driver is simply by using your indicators. Just indicate the side which you would like to pass that vehicle up ahead, then they indicate back to you to say that they understand, they're going to go the other side, and off your uncle. It's a really cool way of staying safe on the beaches up here.
Because, believe it or not, despite the wide beach, accidents happen here more than you think. And when they do, it's usually Sean the towie who has to come and clean up the mess.
Yeah, every day the beach is changing out there. One day is different from the other. It's one day you see them, the next day you don't because of the erosion.
Sean Swan is the only tow truck driver based on Kagari Fraser. He's on call 24/7. In busy times, he responds to an average of 3 tows a day, and almost every time it's for the same reason.
A lot of soft sand, a lot of fast water flowing, and a lot of misjudgment.
Thankfully, my Ford is covered with Club 4x4's off-road recovery insurance, so I don't have to worry about massive bill shock. Club 4x4 have $1,500 worth of recovery cover built into every policy, and you can even increase your insurance to $15,000 or $30,000 worth of recovery cover. As I continue north up the east coast along 75 Mile Beach, there's plenty of stops to be had. From an all-important meat pie at the Yurong Bakery to the cooling waters of Eli Creek, where the kids will happily play all day. In fact, this is a place where I reckon the grown-ups are constantly trying to outsmart each other as well. From families having lunch in the water to couples having drinks floating down the water. Eli Creek is all about relaxing and having a good time. And for the adventurous, the short walk upstream is an absolute beauty as well. Further north along 75 Mile Beach, it's a conga line of sights and experiences. There's the wreck of the SS Mahina, a New Zealand Navy ship from World War I that came ashore during a cyclone in 1935. And a rock formation called the Pinnacles.
There are some really awesome examples of coloured sands here on the Fraser coast, and this is one of the best ones. This is called the Pinnacles, and it is just incredible that you've got this beautiful golden sand down there on the beach, and then it goes up and just goes through various different shades. This is 700,000 years in the making, and those oranges and yellow colours are kind of rust. That's the iron oxide that sits within the sand and actually rusts to create those colours.
Then soon after, a drive around the most eastern point of the island, a headland named Indian Head, named this by Captain James Cook when he sailed past here in 1770. Today, with its turtles and turquoise waters, it feels as untouched as it did back then. Up next, the journey really gets going.
This is where the locals come to play.
And see how the others have come a cropper. Welcome back. I'm exploring the four-wheel drive paradise that is Fraser Island, now known as Kagari. making my way up its eastern beach.
You tend not to have any troubles bogging your vehicle when you are cruising up a nice flat beach. It's when you start to enter or exit the beach and head inland, that's when things start to happen for you and become a lot more challenging, particularly in those summer months when the sand gets incredibly dry and powdery and churned up by other vehicles. So how do you solve that problem? Well, firstly, you must have prepared your vehicle well. You've got to be in the right gear, because especially if you're in a manual vehicle, you do not want to be changing gear when you're coming up an incline on soft sand. You will lose all momentum and probably get bogged. This is where autos really do come into their own in this sort of territory, because you simply put your foot down and keep that momentum and that inertia as you're going up the hill. Secondly, you really don't want to button off, I suppose. As soon as you do, you will tend to lose that momentum and slow down and bog down. So you tend to find that beginner four-wheel drivers will be very, very ginger on the accelerator, and as a result, they will just get slower and slower just when their four-wheel drive needs a helping hand to drive those tires. So don't be shy to put the foot down.
The short detour around Indian Head soon brings you back to the coast, specifically to the spectacular Champagne Pools, called so because when the water spills over the rocks, well, you get the rest. Lots of bubbles. This is postcard stuff, but why have my dad bod in the frame when local Fraser Island tourist Christine is happy to show it off for me and you? Thanks, Christine. We owe you one.
As you drive past Champagne Pools, we're now entering, I guess, my favourite region of Fraser Island, and that is the entire North Point. This has got so many special spots. We're going to go to Orchard Beach. Over on the west coast is Wathumba. Now, we were there last year and the sunsets over the bay are absolutely to die for. But this also takes you towards Nagala Rocks and Sandy Cape, which are just absolutely marvelous parts of the island. Now, I think the reason I love them so much is simply because the backpackers and the rental cars aren't allowed into this region. So while it can be very busy down the middle and southern ends of the island, this is where the locals come to play, and there's not as many locals as there are tourists. So it becomes a really nice, serene part of the island, but it has no shortage of beauty.
Waddy Point not only makes a great fishing spot, but there's plenty of places to camp in comfort here as well. They even have a 6-foot fence to make sure the island's local dingoes can't get in and steal your food.
I'm just mapping out day 2 now on visitfrasercoast.com, where you can plan your entire itinerary. So we're going to kick off with a big four-wheel drive challenge at Nagala Rocks. Then we are going to the jewel in Fraser Island's crown, Lake Mackenzie. And we're going to finish things off with a slice of luxury at the Kingfisher Bay Resort.
This slim section of headland is what's known as Nagala Rocks, a place that has seen many a four-wheel driver before me get bogged, and in some cases even roll their vehicle.
Coming up now to the very famous Nagala Rocks, and this is treacherous point numero uno on Fraser Island, or Kagari. I've got to keep reminding myself of that. Now, it starts off with these wonderful bits of coffee rock. The challenge here is not too great. It's simply try not to hit the rocks. It's a skinny little chasm, and I like to do it in low range just for that throttle control on your vehicle. But it's really not a major challenge. And then you come up to a wee bit of water, and that again is not a great challenge. The real challenge comes out the other side when you hit this really meaty sort of steep, usually really soft stretch of sand, and that is what really brings people unstuck. Often two cars will come at the same time, they'll have to stop, and when they try and get out of there, they get horribly bogged, and out come the exit tracks and out come the winches, and it can be a little bit of a bottleneck on the island because it's a one-lane track. And I can see straight away that people have really hit the berries through here, and you do need a little bit of momentum coming through here, but at the moment, this time of season, it is not too difficult. But it is the sort of thing that does catch people unawares. If you've got a vehicle with overactive traction control and you haven't turned it off or turned it onto the right mode, this is the spot that you can really come unstuck. And it's quite long, this, so if you lose your momentum, if you button off the accelerator as you're coming through here, that's when you could also get bogged. When it has had some rain, then it's really not too much of a challenge, like right now. But the hotter times of the year, the sand can get incredibly powdery and soft, and then you will have untold issues trying to get through this Nagala Rocks bypass. She's bouncy and bumpy. You don't need to take it too fast, otherwise you're just going to damage your vehicle. You can see my vehicle rocking around at the moment, and that is because there's a lot of traffic that comes through here, and often people may have the wrong tyre pressures and they'll dig holes and create all sorts of issues. So there you go, folks. That is your quick guide to Nagala.
This off-road driving tip is brought to you by the Ford Ranger and Ford Everest. Up next.
I'm going to try and reel in a big one.
And later, a meal fit for a king in a place fit for a prince. I'm on the north side of Fraser Island, near the coastal dunes of Orchid Beach. I've come for a one-on-one fishing session with local guide Nick Bavacqua from the nearby Eliza Fraser Lodge.
G'day Nick, great to meet you, mate.
Yeah, Pat, how you going?
Really well, mate. I mean, you've turned on a bloody awesome day for me.
Oh, we get a lot of these magic days up here.
Usually we'd fish for tailor, but at this time of year, we'll be chasing some delicious whiting.
There's a few little things you need to know before we get in there. Whiting actually feed within the first 3-4 metres of the beach, so you don't walk into the water. You stand a couple of metres back into the sand area and then cast your line in.
Okay, rightio. And what do they like to eat, mate?
Oh, whiting, I still think, are one of the sweetest and nicest fish that you can have. So,
Okay. And the bait for these guys?
we're going to use beach worms, which I've pre-caught, and we're going to use the worms, and that's their favourite bait. That's what they're chasing. So.
Gotcha.
Yep.
After a few pointers of how to hook up this special
Feed
bait,
that straight onto your worm.
Down and the worm.
it's time
Like
to
I
wet a
was
line.
saying, we don't walk in the water.
Yep.
And seconds later, I've got one on the hook.
I have something here. Whee! There we go. Got a little guy already.
He is. And here in Queensland, they got to be 23 centimetres in length, so he's got to go back.
He's got to go back? No
Yep.
worries. So Nick, how long have you been fishing Fraser?
Since I was 12 years old, so that's a fair while.
That must be at least 10 years, mate.
At least, I'd say.
Fishing really is a great way to take a mental break as well. These waters are perfect for those who like their four-wheel driving mixed with a bit of rod and reel time.
And I guess, Nick, what about swimming around Fraser on the coast? Obviously, anyone can swim in the beautiful lakes and all that sort of stuff. Is it safe to swim in these sort of spots?
It is, especially in some of the gutters like where we are. I don't know if I'd swim early morning or late afternoon on dusk, because we do have a lot of sharks up here and they cruise just outside the gutters.
Nick is an old hand at this game, and if there's one thing he's learnt, it's that you don't necessarily need the latest and greatest gear to catch a big one.
So Nick, if someone's coming up to Fraser in their four-wheel drive for the first time and they just want to have a flick off the beach, what are the basics that they need in terms of gear for catching things like whiting and tailor and that sort of thing?
It's very basic. It's just a simple alvy reel, a very light rod, and as you can see, the setup is a small sinker, small hook, so it's not, you don't have a massive different type of lures and all that sort of stuff. You can buy cured worms through most tackle shops.
Okay.
And worms probably one of the easiest baits to transport. And there's plenty of gutters on Fraser Island. So.
Yeah, we've seen them right up the east coast. Yeah, they're... Okay, so for whiting, they love these sort of shallow gutters.
Yep.
But if you were after something like Taylor, do they still sit in the same gutters, or are they a little bit further out?
No, they're usually in a deeper gutter. So Taylor will follow the bait fish like frogmouth herrings, and so they're normally in deeper water, and we normally catch them early morning and late afternoon.
But I have to say, spending a beautiful morning out here on the water's edge is like a form of meditation. Your worries quickly drift away with the waves. From the small town of Orchard Beach, I'll now be heading south before turning inland and making my way to the west side of the island along one of Fraser's many sandy tracks.
Nothing really prepares you for the beauty that you find on these inland tracks around Fraser Island. Right on the coast, it's open and gorgeous, and then it's a bit scrubby as you get into the inland, but then right in the centre of the island, everything collides. There's the right water, the right sand, the right everything to create these massive stands of trees, and the variety is just magnificent.
The 1 hour drive soon brings you here, to the incredible Lake Mackenzie. Squeaky white sand, turquoise water, surrounded by stunning melaleuca trees. Never mind me, I'll be back with you in a moment.
The clarity under there is absolutely nuts. You just don't see it anywhere else in Australia, really, and I think it's because of this gorgeous coloured sand. Just take a look at that. It looks more like icing sugar almost than sand that I'm used to seeing. But one tip for you, if you want to get that amazing clarity under the water, just grab a set of goggles. Don't need fancy dive goggles, simple swimming pool ones will do, and you will see the clarity that I'm talking about.
And the trees in this region just get bigger and older the more you look. Not far from Lake Mackenzie is Central Station, an old logging settlement that was once a thriving community before it stopped in 1991. Some of the old machinery is still here today.
The fellow in charge of forestry operations, he liked employing family men. So they lived in cottages just like this, and they created Wangulba Creek State School as a result. Kicked off in 1917 and had a grand total of 15 pupils.
And what a place it would have been to grow up. Mighty tall trees, some with dozens of staghorns growing effortlessly from their limbs. In the city, these epiphytes are worth upwards of $1,000 each. But here, nature shows off its wealth all year round.
The big thing that really blows you away when you're in Central Station is the enormity of the trees and the fact that they are not really growing in soil, they're growing in sand. Now, scientists have analysed this stuff and they've worked out that it's basically devoid of minerals. When you look at a tree like the Saturnae, it really is a biological marvel.
A short walk takes you on a journey through the amazing rainforest. At its centre is Wangulba Creek. With its crystal clear waters running over sand, it's completely silent. Coming up, I visit Kingfisher Bay Resort, before getting back in the saddle to visit a place that very few tourists ever get to see. Now for a change of pace. It's time to cook up something rather hearty.
Welcome to the Lotus Caravans Trooper Gourmet Kitchen. How gorgeous is this? And this kitchen and this entire van we are giving away this season, so make sure you get your entries in. But today I'm going to cook up a little bit of a storm, and this is a really old recipe. It actually comes from 1936, and it's cooking spaghetti in a single pot. When you're caravanning and camping, the last thing you want to do is do extra washing up, so we're going to try and simplify that and still make it tasty spaghetti. So let's get started. Ingredients are really simple. We'll kick off with some bacon, fry that up with the onion and some peppers. Now we'll just brown up the onion and the bacon. Now it's time to put in our liquids. So we're going to use 2 tins of crushed tomatoes. 1 and 2. Half a cup of water. And then we're going to put in half a cup of red wine. Now this wasn't in the original recipe, but I thought I'd throw it in anyway. This is a lovely Western Australian Cab Merlot, and what I love about it is the packaging, as well as the taste obviously, but that, would you believe, is 750 mils. That equates to an entire bottle. So if you're a caravaner, four-wheel driver, yachty, and you want bottles that don't smash and don't weigh a truckload, and a little bag that is actually fully recyclable, the entire thing, then that is really cool.
Now this stuff is way too tasty for mere cooking wine, but hey, it was in the pantry.
Now we'll drop in our peppers for a little bit of colour. And this next step is very optional. If you like a little bit of heat, we have a couple of nice red chilies to throw in there as well. And for the final step of the cooking, we drop in our spaghetti and snap him in half. There we go. And then we'll give him a little bit of a stir and make sure we send him under. And we'll cook that up for about 10 or 15 minutes just to make sure that pasta is nice and cooked through. Personally, I don't like al dente, I like properly cooked all the way through. But yeah, we'll see how she goes. Now for our final bit of flavour, we'll put in around about a tablespoon of the old Worcestershire sauce. And then we will drop in a little bit more salt, not too much because we've got bacon and stuff in there, and some pepper. And now it is plate up time. Okay, so it doesn't look too bad actually, but we can make it look better. A little bit of parmesan on top and a bit of basil. So there you have it, guys. My one pot spaghetti wonder. Not a bad thing for you to cook on your next camping adventure with a few less dishes.
Well, keep those taste buds tingling because the next stop on my Fraser Island adventure has brought me here to the Sand and Wood restaurant at Kingfisher Resort. Okay, so now I know what you're thinking. Pat, we thought you were all about the simpler things in life, like a camp oven and a swag. Well, that's true, but sometimes you just have to indulge a little bit. And with this delicious seafood platter for dinner,
Look at that.
Seafood tower.
I think I can make an exception.
Cheers, mate. Well, I think that's just as good as I'd cook around the campfire. What do you reckon? Maybe a little bit better.
Kingfisher Bay Resort was established in 1992 as one of Australia's first ecotourism resorts. Positioned on 65 hectares, its villas have hosted travellers from all over the world, including, perhaps most famously, Prince Harry and his then pregnant Mrs. Meghan, who came here in 2018. But you don't have to be royalty to afford to stay at Kingfisher Bay. With rooms from less than $250, it's definitely worth spending a night or two to recharge and reconnect. And meeting the resort's head ranger, Tesh Shrek, you'll soon learn why this place is just so special.
We have our Fraser Island funnel web, which is one of my favourites, and a number of endemic species or rare species, which is really cool.
Wow, so the funnel web only found here, that particular species?
Yeah, he's Fraser Island funnel web.
Yeah, okay. So do we have to go far to find him?
No, it's good to look in our forested areas. Central Station's a well-known hotspot for our Fraser Island funnel webs. But anywhere where you've got a bit of dense vegetation is a good place to look.
Ah, fantastic.
But Tess isn't just knowledgeable on kingfisher, she's also got the goss on the Central Station rainforest.
And what sort of tree species can you expect to see? And you know, are there plantations, or is it all old growth?
There's a mix, so there is a number of plantations, particularly in the Central Station area. There is also some old growth, and that's really thanks to selective logging that came in through the early 1900s, where they did leave some of the old growth for seed dispersal. But you will also see a lot of the plantations, all native plantations of our karri pines and hoot pines in particular, which are beautiful and some of my favourite species. Some of the old growth you'll see are our satinaes, our Fraser Island satinaes, and our tallow-woods as well, which are massive old trees.
We're going to head to Awinya Creek later on. That's another little favourite camp of yours, isn't it?
It is. That's my number one spot on the island. Absolutely love it. No place better, I reckon. You've got that beautiful crystal clear creek. The western side of the island is really special, particularly that northwestern area of Platypus Bay that includes Awinya.
Yeah, fantastic.
Still to come, I'm going to show you a Fraser Island campsite that will blow you away.
And see what remains of the wildfires that ripped through this island 1 year ago. Welcome back to my journey through Fraser Island, or as it's now known, K'gari. I've headed to the eastern side of the island, where the drive north along 75 Mile Beach is by far the quickest way to make a mile. Then, choosing my route carefully, I'm going across the island as I set my course for Awinya Creek on the northwest coast.
Okay, it's off the eastern beach and we are going to head straight across the island. Now we're doing that on the Warali Road, and that is pretty much the quickest way to the west coast of Fraser Island. Now I say the quickest because you will look at maps and you will find all sorts of different roads right up through the guts of Fraser Island. But you want to be careful with those because they are very, very slow, very tiresome. Often they're closed because trees have fallen over them, fires have come through, they haven't been opened up. So if you just want a quick way across the island, this is the way to go. Those other roads will take you, potentially like 7 hours drive to get just from Kingfisher up to where we're headed, which is Awinya Creek. On the way over west, you will drive through some gorgeous transitional rainforest. Just some little pockets of it here and there, but when you get in here, it is gorgeous because the tree species just change completely. So you're going to be looking at satinaes, brush box, piccabean palms. They're absolutely gorgeous. And you'll also see some giant strangler figs that have really just nailed that host tree and have created these gorgeous webs of trunk that just seem to go soaring up into the sky. It's magnificent.
I really do love this slice of Fraser. No crowds, just me, my 4x4 and Mother Nature at her finest. The 2020 bushfire scorched around 85,000 hectares of land, more than half the island. It burned for months, largely uncontained, as debate raged about what was the right course of action, to spend millions fighting it out, or hope it might eventually burn itself out. A year later, the black scars remain, but those fire-ravaged areas are showing signs of life once more.
I was driving along and I just had to stop here in this beautiful meadow of what are essentially flowers. So this is the xanthorrhea, or the grass tree, and you can really see just how they've been burned and charred by the fires. But these guys absolutely love the fires, and that is why we're seeing these gorgeous flowers just exploding right over this valley. There's certain species that love fire. This is one of them. The Banksias, they can handle it too. Generally, they love a cooler fire, not an absolutely roasting fire that can actually kill a lot of the species. But out here, people worry about Fraser Island being burned because it burned for months and months, but I can tell you, she is recovering absolutely beautifully.
The sandy tracks on Fraser are a lot of fun to drive. But remember, a lot of these roads are two-way, so keep your speed down and expect to routinely pull over so that others can pass. An hour and a half after leaving the eastern side of the island, I've arrived on its western edge. And what a spot it is.
And here we go, entering the mighty west coast of Fraser Island, and it is looking picture perfect. A little bit of coffee rock there. So they've had a few big surfs over here, so it has eroded it a little bit, but I've picked the tides and this is just looking absolutely mint at the moment. Now, why do I love the west coast so much? Well, firstly, because the east coast is kind of easy-ish to get to. This takes a little bit more effort and a little bit more time, so it's not usually on people's itinerary. So hence, there's not many people over here on the west coast of Fraser Island. But there is a bit of a sweet spot when it comes to Fraser. Go too far north or too far south and you get kind of mangrovey conditions, and mangroves mean midgies. Midgies means not great camping. Whereas Awinya is a bit of a sweet spot. It's not midgie free or anything like that, but you'll find far less. They won't chase you away or, you know, throw you into the ocean or anything. The other benefit of the west coast over the east coast is the fact that you tend not to get those big onshore winds that can really blow things away. It's usually a lot more calm out here on the west coast. And it really is just a different vibe. It's a calmer place to camp. I'm just astounded at all this rock that's been uncovered on the west coast. It is vastly different to when I was up here last time, but that is Fraser Island. It is a moving, living island, and you notice that when you come up time and time again, just how much it changes. It changes with every single tide. So you may be cruising up a perfectly flat beach one day, and the next it is eroded and absolutely full of rock where once there was none. So don't take this island for granted, because it does change just so much. And if you are a four-wheel driver and you assume that it's going to be amazing and flat and awesome, it just might not be, and it could catch you unawares.
A mere 10 minutes drive from Warali Creek sits Bawarity Creek. It's a gorgeous little campsite, though with a mere handful of sites and a freshwater creek, you're extremely lucky to secure a camp here. Trek a little further north up the beach though, and there's room aplenty at our final destination, Awinya Creek. Coming up next, I'm going to give you a Fraser Island tip that could save you thousands. This is what happens when you attempt Awinya Creek at the wrong time and with the wrong vehicle setup. No snorkel, no recovery plan, and frankly, not much idea. And these are those exact same waters, but in low tide.
This really is probably the sneaky four-wheel drive obstacle of Fraser Island, because at the moment you look at this and Awinya Creek is genuinely really quite shallow in four-wheel drive terms. Just comes up to my knees there, no problem whatsoever. I mean, my Ranger can go to 800 mil and that's without a snorkel. However, I want you to have a look at those mangroves around me and the height that they grow, because they like wet feet too, folks. So what happens here? Tide goes up, river gets blocked, water level goes way up, and you end up with an innocuous crossing turning into a seriously deep car swamper. Four-wheel drives and water don't really mix that well, because if you suck water into your intake, your engine hydraulics, because your engine can compress air but it cannot compress water. So kaboom, dead engine. And lots of vehicles have had that sad demise right here at Awinya Creek. So you have been warned. This looks easy, and often it is, but keep an eye on those tides to protect your 4B.
And Wynyard Creek on Fraser Island's west coast offers some stunning free camping and beach driving that will give your tyres a look you won't find anywhere else.
It's hard to believe that we are at the last episode of the season. The first episode, we had our vehicles and our tyres covered in snow. Now they are covered in Fraser Island sand. It looks kind of similar, to be honest, but it's pretty amazing where we've actually been and where these Fords have taken us. I mean, we've been into the Red Centre, up into the Kimberley, we've tackled the corrugations of Mount Isa and now finished off here on Fraser Island, and we have had an absolute wonderful time. Now, if you've missed any of the episodes, jump onto the Mr. 4x4 app, download it, and then you can watch not just this season, but any season you like for the last 14 years. So if you need your fill of four-wheel drive, that's where you need to go. I'm Pat Callinan, thanks so much for watching. Until next time, keep the shiny side up. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And by all means, tell me where you want me to go next on my adventure so I can show you all the tips you'll need to go on yours. I'm Pat Callinan. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.